I have often talked on this channel about my love for vague horror. I think it can be very fun to piece together a story yourself and create theories as to what it might all mean. That's one of the reasons why I love the SCP This Thing a Quiet Madness made. There isn't a clear-cut explanation as to what is really going on in the story, and you have to kind of make your own interpretation. So today I'm going to be talking about another SCP written by DJ Cactus that is potentially one of the most open-ended entries of his that I've ever read, which is SCP-2740, It Wasn't There. I'm going to be going through all of the information that the article gives us, and then I'll be spending a good amount of time looking at several different theories as to what might be going on here. I wasn't able to find any sort of consensus online about what this story might actually be about, or what is actually hidden in the attic of the Lee family house. So I'll be giving a few of my own theories and discussing some other theories that I've found online, but I won't be really solving this SCP because I don't think it can be solved. But regardless of whether we can truly understand what is going on here, we can take great value in the disquieting atmosphere the story creates. Remember to subscribe if you haven't yet. I talk about internet horror and horror literature, and I'm trying to reach 50,000 subs by the end of 2025. But without further ado, let's discuss the unresolved tragedy of SCP-2740, It Wasn't There. As always, the article starts with the containment procedures, but we are told that they are actually unable to directly contain this particular anomaly. They simply provide a cover story for the house where it takes place by saying that it's uninhabitable due to a gas leak. We learn that this particular anomaly is believed to exist in the northwest corner of the attic in the home of the Lee family, which exists somewhere in Indiana. Indiana is kind of a recurring location in DJ Cactus's stories. This Thing a Quiet Madness made takes place in Salvation, Indiana, and I can't remember if the author is from that state or not. I personally have never been to Indiana before, but it's also a state in the Midwest, and I do listen to a lot of Midwest emo music, so I guess there's kind of some connection there. Setting so many of these stories in Indiana feels like what Stephen King does with Maine. King sets almost all of his stories in Maine, and that's probably what that state is like best known for at this point. I imagine that the author of this story has a personal connection with Indiana, and that's why they choose to set so many of their stories there. But they are all like horror stories, so maybe they're not a big fan of that state after all. But back to the article, we learn that anyone who tries to approach the ladder leading to this attic will find themselves unable to do so. While individuals can approach the ladder and in certain cases even begin to climb it, upon further inspection it will always be discovered that individuals did not in actuality do so. This is probably the most important concept in this article, but it's also a little hard to wrap your mind around, and I think that's very intentional. You might be able to walk up to the ladder and maybe even begin to climb it to discover what is actually in the attic, but it will always be discovered that you never actually did any of those things at all. This is a major theme throughout the story, the uncertainty of existence. The organization clarifies that they are not certain if this effect even exists at all. So not only are people walking up to the attic but never actually doing it in the first place, this forgetful effect is also speculated to not exist as well. So does that mean that people are entering the attic, or maybe they did make an effort but the false memories aren't real? You can go back and forth forever. It's almost like a paradox. The only information gathered regarding SCP-2740 has been done so through interviews with affected individuals. The attic appears to instill a sense of dread in those who are aware of it, although the reason for this is unknown. This effect begins upon entering the house or by becoming cognizant of SCP-2740 through discussion with other individuals affected by its anomalous nature. And that is the full description of this particular anomaly, but we have a couple interviews that we can look through that'll give us a little more information on what might be in the attic. But it almost seems like whatever is up there doesn't want to be found. It wants people to think that they have gone up there, but it doesn't want anyone actually going up there. The first interview is with Franklin Lee, the patriarch of the Lee family that lives in the house with the anomaly. He is also the owner of the house. This interview is conducted by Dr. K. Dorset, and I'll be reading both parts and stating who is talking before I read their section for more clarity. I'll also be putting the relevant text up on the screen, so that makes that a little bit easier to follow. Dr. Dorset: when did you begin to notice something was wrong? Franklin Lee: maybe, I don't know, it was years ago. It wasn't always like this though. In the beginning it was just something, you could ignore it. I remember there would be times I would walk down the hall upstairs and just glance at it and get this feeling. Dr. Dorset: can you describe the feeling? Franklin Lee: like there was something up there. Not that I could see it or anything, and we didn't hear anything either. The mood in the house changed, and we thought it was because she, no, that wasn't it. Franklin Lee: our oldest daughter, Olivia, she left when she was 17, and there were some other things going on then, and we were going through some hard times. Olivia left to go live with my wife's sister. We haven't talked to her in years. I don't know, maybe we did start to notice it then? Dr. Dorset: what did you originally notice? Franklin Lee: the quiet. Everything was real quiet. Didn't sound like a house with 3 other kids, but I don't know. It just built up over time, right? And after a while, I decided I needed to know. I needed to find out what was up there, what she had left. Dr. Dorset. Mr. Lee? Franklin Lee. I tried. I can't tell you how many times I've tried. I'll begin climbing and open my eyes and I'll be back in bed or in the living room by the TV, and the feeling never goes away. I quit my job. I couldn't handle the stress. I couldn't explain it to everyone. Everyone thought I was crazy, but there were a few times I contemplated knocking the whole house down. I even signed the papers once, but then I called back and the company didn't exist anymore. Dr. Dorset, why didn't you move? Franklin Lee, you don't think we tried that? It was like climbing that ladder. You get halfway up, you push open the door, and you can feel it, but then you're sitting at the kitchen table. End of interview. After the interview, we get a crossed out note that says, following this interview, Mr. Lee and his family were moved to Site 81 for holding an examination, with release pending further study of their mental condition. Under that crossed out section is an updated section which reads, the Lee family has not been moved to Site 81. Information claiming otherwise has been proven inaccurate. Research into this is ongoing. We'll cover what that whole interview was getting at when we get to the theory portion of this video, but we should note that the Lee's oldest daughter, Olivia, is an important piece to the puzzle. Mr. Lee says that she left to live with his wife's sister and that they haven't talked to her in years, and this was all around the time they started to notice the issue with the attic. Next up, we have another interview conducted by Dr. Dorset, and this time the subject of the interview is Ivet Lee, the matriarch of the family, and Franklin's wife. Dr. Dorset, Mrs. Lee, can you tell me anything about why your husband wasn't able to articulate any details about SCP-2740? Ivet Lee, have you not been in the house, Dr. Dorset? Dr. Dorset, I have not. My station has been here in our mobile facility. Ivet Lee, then you can't understand. We've lived there for 20 years and we can't do anything about it either. We've tried everything, but nothing works. Dr. Dorset, we have reason to believe that you entered the attic on date redacted. Can you confirm this? A footnote tells us that this instance of Ivet entering the attic is something that has been confirmed by the 3 youngest Lee children. Each of them described an event where Ivet Lee entered the attic, stayed there for several minutes, and then descended, and no other information is known. Ivet Lee, no, of course not. Dr. Dorset, Mrs. Lee, this will be much easier if you can be honest with us. Ivet Lee, my husband and I, we've been good parents, but we fought with Olivia over so many things that seem inconsequential now, but it drove a wedge between us, and we all know there was something festering in that space. She couldn't admit the mistakes that she had made. When she left, I could still feel the wedge, like it never went away. One night I woke up and heard her. I went to the ladder and climbed up into it, and Dr. Dorset. And? Ivet Lee, I don't know. It wasn't Olivia. End interview. So we get some pretty interesting information regarding the dynamic between Olivia and her parents that seemingly confirms that she entered the attic, but that it wasn't actually her up there. We then get an incident log written up by the Foundation. After interviews with Mr. and Mrs. Lee and their children, and with neighbors also affected by SCP-2740, all of whom were certain of the existence of SCP-2740, but uncertain of any other details. Several attempts were made to penetrate the attic, both manned and unmanned. In all cases, further investigation revealed that no attempts were actually made, regardless of the claims made by involved personnel stating otherwise. These attempts may have included direct access through the second floor attic ladder, shaped charges situated at various points on the second floor ceiling, drone access through the ladder opening, manned and unmanned access by cutting through the roof, and a complete leveling of the home. As stated above, no records exist that any of these methods were actually attempted. We get one last interview by Dr. H. Garrett, and this time Dr. Garrett is interviewing Olivia Lee, the oldest daughter of the Lee family, who has since changed her name to Rebecca Feldman. Dr. Garrett, Miss Feldman, what I want to discuss with you is a phenomenon associated with your parents' home. It's located in the upstairs. Miss Feldman, the attic, I know. I thought somebody would come after me about that. I just didn't think it would be so soon. Dr. Garrett, are you saying you are aware of this phenomenon? Miss Feldman, I left my parents when I was a kid, Dr. Garrett. We had always fought. They weren't happy with the choices I had made, the things I believed in, the people I spent time with. There was anger there, so much anger. I thought it might suffocate me. When I left, I felt like I could breathe again. I never went back after that, but sometimes I can still feel it. You know how you feel when you're dreaming and you're trying to run away from something, but you can't see it, and you don't know if it's really there, but you run anyway? That's how it feels. Dr. Garrett, what prompted you to leave your parents? Miss Feldman, there was one night we had a fight, and my dad was drinking, and Mom was even worse off at that point, and I had kept a knife under my pillow for a long time in case something would happen, and they came into my room that night. I don't know what their intentions were, but I drew it and backed them into the wall. The whole thing felt like I was being choked, and that was the first time I heard it. Something moving above me. I dropped the knife and ran, and I didn't look back. Dr. Garrett, do you know anything about what is in the attic, Miss Feldman? Miss Feldman, there are always secrets, Doctor. There's only so much that hate can build up in a place before it starts hating you back. I don't know what's in the attic, or if there's anything up there at all, and I don't think I want to. End of interview. We then get another crossed out note beneath the interview. At the conclusion of this interview, Miss Feldman was detained by Foundation personnel pending further investigation of her claims. Below the crossed out section, there is a correction. Currently, it is believed that Olivia Lee does not exist, nor has ever existed. The information in the interview is undergoing further investigation. There is a link in that note that brings us to a short story that acts as a companion piece to the article, and I'm pretty sure this wasn't actually written by the original author of the article, but the original author did approve it as a canon addition to the story. I'm going to read this story, and then we'll get into the analysis and start to maybe make more sense of what might be going on here. I know it's confusing, and thank you for your patience. This story is titled Leeway. I had parents once. They were fighting over something with me frequently. I can't remember what it was we ever fought about, but I can always feel the dread from them. Nice to think they were probably fighting with themselves and I got roped into it. Maybe if I at least thought like that, part of the blame wouldn't be on me. Ridding myself of that responsibility makes everything afterwards easier to cope with, right? One night, I ran away. I had to back them into a corner with a knife just to escape from it, but I ran. Something was different about that night. That much I'm sure of. My parents could feel it too. I watched them as much as I could while getting out of the house, and they never looked me in the eyes during it all. Not once did I look back as I sprinted away. For a few years after, I managed to live with some kind of peace. I changed my name, got a new job, made friends, found a place to live with my aunt for a while before having my own space. There were oddities in spite of all that. I was still carrying that weight of my experiences around, but something else latched onto that, a sense of dread and fear, I think. It's hard to put into words, but it was something more than that. Even with my friends, I'd approach all interactions with some kind of caution, as if I'd have to run away from them as well. Being a landscape contractor helped distract me from that, but as time went by, the way I went about things felt, well, have you ever had something loom over you, threaten to overwhelm your senses? It just took its sweet time with it. Nights eventually started to get worse for me. My dreams gradually drifted towards one single recurring one. When they started, it'd probably be at the tail end of the dream, or maybe just involving one element. I've always been frightened regardless, and for the past however many months it's always been the same. I'm back at the house again. Everyone is sleeping, my parents, siblings, even the pet dog, though I can't remember if we had one anymore. I never start out in different places though. Always without fail the same place, right in the main hallway on the second floor, with only two places to go. The bedroom or forward, but I can never go in my bedroom. Either the door is locked, did the door ever have a lock? I can't see why. Or I just can't get through the open passageway, so there's only forward. And forward is the ladder to the attic. The attic always creeped me out up until the time I left the house. I could never get near the ladder without being a bit repulsed by it, and as far as I knew, no one ever stored anything up there. But it's different this time. There's more to it. A sense of loathing from myself, and hate from somewhere, and fear, and well, there's no accurate words. I don't think it's something someone would ever experience in their lives. It's another kind of emotion altogether. For the first time ever, I climb up the ladder, my feet feeling heavier and harder to lift. I can feel my stomach twist and my head pulse erratically. I don't want to go up there, yet I have no choice but to go up there. I never have the choice to turn back, it's always forward. The ladder is only 12 rungs, I've been counting for a couple years now, yet the flow of time seems to get slower and slower with each rung until it nearly stops altogether at the top. Finally, I make it and I look in. I see the attic. The other thing that keeps repeating in these dreams is that I never can see what's in there or remember. I see something, but I don't know what that something is or if it's anything at all. There's a force, but there's no force to really sense in there. It's empty in there. That's what I hope for. That every time I go up into the attic, there's nothing there. Despite that, there's always something that fills me with worry and terror. I can't help but stare into the attic, looking around to see what's brought me there. And I realize I never climbed up it at all. There's only forward to go, so I'm forced to go back up. Maybe this time I catch a glimpse of my parents, sleeping with their heads buried into the wall, lights obscuring them from my vision completely. I still can't go into there to talk to them. There's only the ladder, the attic, and whatever is waiting for me in there. And for the first time ever, I climb up into the attic, feet feeling heavier and harder to lift, stomach twisting, head pulsing. Eventually, I wake up, having never climbed the ladder at all. Of course, I know I climbed the ladder, yet I can't ever get up there. Though I know I did, nothing's waiting for me. That's the ideal, but I can feel it. Something I must have left behind. Occasionally, I'll even dream about my parents trying to climb it, My mom did once. I'm afraid to know what she saw. I've had the urge for a while to go back and visit my parents. In one of my more final and relatively normal dreams, I think I went back there. It was Christmas and I wanted to at least see my parents one more time to clear up the air and make things better for all of us. I snagged a few gifts for my parents and siblings on the way, and it took me almost half a day of driving to get there. Home wasn't like I remembered it though. Everyone had acted like I'd never existed to begin with. They remembered me wistfully, as if I never had a full life with them to begin with. The attic is still there, too. I felt myself stepping towards the attic, going to climb the ladder. And that is everything I could find regarding this particular SCP, so let's start talking about some different theories that I have regarding what is going on here. Fair bit of warning, I will be talking about suicide and child abuse, but I will not be talking about either of those things in explicit detail. They just pertain to some theories on this story. My immediate thought when reading this story for the first time was that the attic was a metaphor to discuss the aftermath of someone ending their own life. We learned that Olivia seems to be the only person who has entered the attic, but we also learned that Mrs. Lee has also been up there but seems to deny this. My thought was that Olivia took her own life in the attic and was found by Mrs. Lee, who potentially just left her up there, not able to deal with what she had seen. She says that what she saw up there wasn't Olivia, which seems to disprove this reading, but it could be a reference to how some people view others who have taken their own lives. If Mr. and Mrs. Lee weren't clued in and weren't cognizant of just how terrible Olivia's mental state was, they could have been shocked to see that she had taken her own life. And upon seeing her, Mrs. Lee could tell herself that it wasn't Olivia, that Olivia would never do something like that Olivia was difficult, but she never showed any signs of self-harm. One reason that this idea jumped into my mind right away was the language that was used by the people who described trying to get up into the attic. They say that they did everything they possibly could, that they tried every method, but then we learned that none of these methods were ever actually attempted in the first place. Maybe Mr. and Mrs. Lee wanted to believe that they had done everything they could to take care of Olivia and watch out for the warning signs of her worsening mental state. But they didn't actually do enough to help her. They never did anything. Any attempts to save their daughter that they swear they tried never actually happened. It wasn't there. This theory also accounts for the discrepancy in the existence of Olivia. We get an interview from her, but then we are told that the interview didn't take place and that she most likely doesn't exist. Now, obviously, there is some sort of paranormal shenanigans going on if she was able to give the interview, but if we're running with an Olivia is dead theory, then we have to accept that. This interpretation sees the short story as Olivia in denial about what truly happened to her. She is a ghost that doesn't know that she is a ghost, which is a classic horror trope. She has recurring dreams of climbing the ladder to the attic and being scared of what she can feel when she's up there, and that fear comes from her almost recollecting her own death. At the end of the story, she mentions another dream where she sees her family at Christmas and they treat her like she never existed, although they can still remember her. This could be the Lee family participating in its favorite family activity, sweeping things under the rug. They remember Olivia but choose not to acknowledge her tragic death or just pretend like she ran away. Despite this, the attic still looms overhead, an attic that is still full of hate and anger that Olivia felt towards her parents and that they felt towards her. It just stays in the house. An offshoot of the theory that Olivia took her own life is the theory that she was murdered by her parents. There are a couple pieces of evidence that could suggest this. Olivia says that she used to fight with her parents and that they got really drunk, and that on the night that she left, the night she finally went into the attic, she kept a knife under her pillow just in case. That seems like kind of an extreme precaution if you were simply feuding with your parents like a lot of rebellious teenagers do. The knife suggests that something else was going on. Abuse seems like the most likely option. Any kind of abuse will do it. Olivia feels she needs a weapon to literally protect herself from her parents who enter her room at night. She backs them into a wall and enters into the attic, but she never leaves, and she's followed up there by her mother who ends up killing her, potentially with that same knife. This again feeds into her line of, it wasn't Olivia in the attic. She can't bear the thought of remembering that she killed her own daughter, so she pretends that it wasn't her or that it never actually happened. Then, whether Olivia's body is still in the attic or not, that secret looms over the family and is never truly addressed. They talk around the issue and make sure no one knows about it. I think the biggest piece of evidence supporting this theory, again, is simply the presence of the knife under Olivia's pillow. If she feels she needs a weapon to defend herself, then things must be bad. But let's take a look at some theories that don't involve Olivia being dead. The one that seems to fit pretty well is that the Olivia story is true and that she ran away when she was 17. The knife under her pillow could have been a planned move to threaten her parents so they would let her leave the house. She stops by the attic, maybe to grab something, and leaves. Then she goes to live with her aunt, changes her name due to her not wanting to be associated with her parents, and lives a relatively normal, anonymous life. In this case, the attic acts as a symbol of all the anger and resentment built up between the parents and their daughter and their inability to make amends. They say they want to come to an understanding with each other, they want to put all of this behind them, but every time they try, they find they didn't actually try at all. This lines up really well with Mrs. Lee's description of what is in the attic when she says, "We all knew there was something festering in that space. She couldn't admit the mistakes that she had made. When she left, I could still feel the wedge, like it never went away." When you have a falling out as severe as Olivia had with her parents, a falling out that drives a family apart and results in Olivia changing her name, that doesn't go away. And even at the time of the interview, Mrs. Lee still brings up that Olivia couldn't admit to the mistakes that she made, and she still holds on to that kind of resentment in her heart. If the Lees were truly ready to forgive and accept their daughter, she wouldn't be holding on to those supposed mistakes. She would have let them go already. Another interesting aspect to the report that we get that works against the Olivia is dead theory is that the neighbors are all aware of the existence of the attic and the anomaly. I suppose they could be aware that there is something strange there, but unaware that Olivia's body is up there. But it seems like the mystery in the attic is an open secret. This would play well into the Olivia had a falling out with her parents theory. Surely a moment as dramatic as your neighbor's daughter fleeing in the middle of the night would be well known in the neighborhood. And the neighborhood would also be aware of this festering mess of unresolved issues that plagued the Lee household, but they would also be unable to do anything about it. I suppose another theory that we should look at is the Olivia doesn't exist theory. This one is really strange, but it also has some evidence pointing to it. The biggest piece of evidence is that the foundation states that they were unable to authenticate that an interview with Olivia was ever conducted, and that she simply does not exist. This could mean that Olivia was a manifestation of the entity in the attic. If it could fabricate memories of trying to enter the attic, why couldn't it fabricate memories of an oldest daughter? The article also mentions that the Lees moved into the house like right before Olivia was born, so again, she could just be a manifestation of what is up there in the attic. This also ties into the short story being something like a ghost that doesn't know that it's a ghost. Maybe Olivia is an idea that doesn't know they never truly existed. She visits her house on Christmas in her dreams and finds that her family is acting like she never existed because she really never actually existed in the first place. The inability to enter the attic could be a manifestation of the idea that you cannot possibly confront an issue that doesn't exist. There is nothing there to confront. If you ask me personally about what I think about all of these theories, I would say that Olivia being dead is the most interesting theory, and her taking her life fits with some of the greater themes in the story. But I personally think the most likely scenario is that Olivia did have a falling out with her parents after potentially being abused by them, and the anomaly represents their inability to come together and make amends. I also personally believe that this story is much less about the ins and outs and specific of this scenario, and more about the way that it makes the reader feel. I'd be curious to know what your guys' first thoughts were when you initially read this story or heard me explain it in this video. Maybe this article acts as some sort of litmus test, because my immediate thought was that it represented people planning on reaching out to someone that is struggling but ultimately never doing it, which pushes that person further into darkness. And I think a big reason that idea speaks to me is that I personally have struggled in the past with depression, and it can feel like no one can truly reach out to you or comfort you. Although I would never say that those around me didn't care to help me. My family and friends and wife are all wonderful and have always been there for me when I needed them. But when you're in a place like that, it can feel like nobody is reaching out to you in the right way. Even though there is no right way for somebody to reach out to you, that way doesn't exist because your mind won't let you have that kind of satisfaction. Another reason why that particular reading stands out to me is because similar themes are explored in This Thing a Quiet Madness Made, which was written later. In my video about that, we talked about how the 10th cheerleader needed someone to help her, to support her, but the town abandoned her and left her all alone. It's in the same vein as this story. But regardless of what you think this all means, I think we can all agree that it's a fantastic piece of emotional writing that is incredibly thought-provoking and eerie. This article doesn't scare me in the way that This Thing a Quiet Madness Made does. I'm not really freaked out by the attic or what might be up there, but I am incredibly fascinated in what the author is trying to get the reader to understand. What is the message that he's trying to get across to us? I keep coming back to this question, and I can't help but think that we're not supposed to understand this. We're supposed to feel it. We can't know it. We can only sense it. Whatever we want to know about the attic in the Lee house, whatever we're looking for, it wasn't there. Thank you so much for watching this video. This SCP was suggested by a commenter, and I ended up really enjoying reading it and attempting to piece it all together. If you like this video, then please consider subscribing to the channel. I make videos about horror literature and internet horror, and I also talk about SCPs occasionally. If you have another SCP that you would like me to cover, then please let me know in the comments. Also, please let me know what your theories are regarding this article. I have 2 other SCP videos on this channel, so if you haven't seen those, then please check them out. If you love internet horror, then I've got videos on both Baraska and Jeff the Killer. If horror literature is more your Stranger Thing, then I released a video a couple days ago on Children of the Corn, and I had a longer video that was released like a week ago on a horror mystery novel called Disappearance at Devil's Rock, and I was super happy with that video. I thought it was a ton of fun. If you would like to support me further, then please consider becoming a channel member where you'll have early access to all my videos, access to exclusive video book reviews, and access to my members-only book club. A big thank you to all the members you're seeing on the screen right now, and a massive thank you to all my gold tier members, Amanda Mapes, Lucas Fernando, Chris Lamb, Ezra, Silent Trails, Blue Radio Media, Tyler the Leper, Vic's Corner, Miss Joy 16, Coco Boko, Cherry Shark, Saddest Strong, Moonsong Blog, Starlight Pink, Jack Samore, Amanda Castillon, Lexi, Arcade Link Author, Pyrocat, B, The Official Gar, Passion the Fruit, Ybab Flow, Hi, Zappo Dappos, Semra, Laura Gonzalez, and Florapause. Thank you so much for supporting me and letting me just sit here and talk about books and spooky internet stories for a living. I truly love reading and talking about all this stuff. Again, if you haven't yet, then please check out some of my other videos, especially my ones about horror literature. I find those videos to be really entertaining and really interesting to me because they're typically about subjects that most people don't know about, and I personally think that's pretty interesting. And thank you again to everyone for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.